friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Teacher Kayla, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today. So, you got here just in time for a mystery party. Don't you love that? I'm so excited for this. I love mysteries, and I'm so glad that you can join me. So, grab your hats, grab your jackets, your spyglasses, whatever it takes for you to be Mr. Holmes, and come on, let's get started. Alright, so let's get started with our mystery story lesson. I have created a mystery story lesson guide for you so you can follow along with this lesson and get more out of it. So just check down in the description below and you'll be able to download that. Okay, let's get started. So what we're going to first do is I'll explain a little bit how to play, but again, you can read about it to get more information. If you have any questions, you can always leave me a comment, message me about it, okay? Alright, so our mystery story lesson today is the embezzler. Okay, so our story will be about an embezzler. Quickly, how to play. So during this game, I will read the story and provide you with a list of suspects. Okay, there will be 4 suspects. Alright, your task is to be on the lookout for clues that could help you to solve this mystery. So make sure that you're keeping an eye out for any words or phrases that you find challenging or unfamiliar as well. I think I picked out probably the most difficult words and put together another little bonus down below of 12 vocabulary words from this lesson that could be helpful for you, and it's all free. Check it out in the description, but if there are any others, just let me know. And while you're going through with this lesson, feel free to pause the video if you need to take notes or to think about it, to just gather your thoughts, okay? Don't worry, I will let you know before I announce the guilty verdict, so you have time to take a minute and really think about who you think did it, okay? We call this a whodunit in America, or in English. We say that this mystery is a whodunit because we have to figure out who committed the crime, right? Okay, so if we jump down to the section titled Getting Started, this is where that you'll get a little bit of the backstory about the character that you are playing and your role in all of this. So you are playing the role of Jinx Jennings. Jinx Jennings is a well-known journalist. He is a big football player guy who is well-known for his journalism, but he's also a little less well-known for his alias or pseudonym, Ask Annie. So he also writes a column in the local paper answering questions for people who write in who have problems that need solving. And this just gives you a little introduction to that. In the story, we'll get into more of this, but there is a character, Inspector Martinez, who gives you a call and asks you to come help out on the case. So here's our suspect list. I'll go over this just briefly, just a little bit of it. Our first suspect is Donner Bloomberg. His position is president of Bloomberg Furniture. A little bit of background with him. He has inherited his wealth. He is very wealthy. He maintains the company's legacy and he presents himself very well. He is also going to be the last person that saw the money in the safe, as well as the person who discovered that the money was missing. The suspect number 2 is Victoria Lucas. And Victoria Lucas is the showroom manager at Bloomberg Furniture. And she's in her mid-30s. She's skilled in furniture sales. She is very professional. People like her. So we'll learn more about her soon too. But these are just the basics. Number 3, Eli Nguyen. Eli Nguyen is the company administrator at Bloomberg Furniture. He is also like a snappy or a snazzy dresser. He's energetic. He is very outgoing, and he is a great salesman, even though that is not his job. Okay. And Anya Petrova's position is secretary of Bloomberg Furniture. She is newly hired, and she replaced a long-time employee. She's efficient. She's ambitious. We're going to jump down to the vocabulary and go over these words before we read the story. So the first word is embezzling, which I thought would be the best word to go over first, since our story is about the embezzler. So when we're talking about embezzling, we are talking about people misplacing or misusing funds. They're taking them for themselves or for another reason that is not intended by the company. So the example that we have here is the accountant was caught embezzling money from the company's account over several years. Embezzling. All right. The second word that we have is guise. Guise refers to an external appearance or false display that conceals the true nature of intentions of something or someone. So a guise is like falsifying yourself. So the embezzling, you're falsifying what you're doing with money. An embezzler is who falsifies that. And then when we talk about guise, we are saying you're falsifying yourself. Well, here's an example. The con artist approached the unsuspecting victim under the guise of a charity worker. So this person pretended to be a charity worker and approached a person asking them for money. Number 3, exonerate. Exonerate means to clear someone's name of guilt. So when you're working through this lesson, you have your 4 suspects and you have to figure out who is the guilty party, right? So you have to figure out who is guilty, the guilty suspect or the guilty party, the guilty person. If you don't think that they're guilty, or there is something in the story that tells you that they're not guilty or makes you feel that they're not guilty, this exonerates them, right? The example here I've given is the new evidence presented in court exonerated the defendant and led to their release. So the new evidence exonerated or helped to show that they were not guilty. Now, on the other hand, with number 4, this one is incriminates. Incriminates is the opposite of exonerate. Incriminate means it provides evidence or proof that someone committed a crime or wrongdoing. So, for example, the fingerprints found at the crime scene incriminated the suspect and became crucial evidence in the investigation. So, if something incriminates you, it makes people believe that you did it. So when you're working through this mystery, you have to figure out if you are going to exonerate someone, or if a fact exonerates them, or if a fact incriminates them. Number 5, indulgent. When we talk about indulgent, we mean lenient or loose or excessively tolerant, often towards one's own desires or the desires of others. For example, the grandmother was indulgent and allowed her grandchildren to have ice cream before dinner. Yeah, that's pretty lenient. I do not like to do this for my son. I like to make sure that he eats all of his meal, his vegetables, proteins, all of his good food before he gets that ice cream treat, right? Grandma, what are you doing? Actually, I know my mom spoils my son like this. I know my son has probably had ice cream before dinner many times. I do not condone this, or I do not say this is okay, but we can't always watch what grandma's doing, right? So, number 6. Impression. Impression refers to perception or opinion or feeling formed about someone or something. So if you get an impression of someone, it's what you think they represent. So for the example that I have here, it says the job interview went well and the candidate left a positive impression on the hiring manager. So that means that the candidate left the manager thinking that the candidate was a great person for the job. So if you leave a good impression, then you make someone think that you are great or someone likes you, right? Number 7, efficiency. This denotes the ability to accomplish tasks or achieve goals with minimum wasted effort or resources. The example here is the new manufacturing process improved efficiency and reduced production costs. So if we become more efficient, then we are doing more with less. Basically, let's say that I'm becoming more efficient at a task, any task, learning English or anything. If I'm becoming more efficient at it, then it takes me less time to do it. Our next word is dignified. Dignified describes having a composed demeanor, showing a sense of self-worth or honor. So, for example, the elderly gentleman walked with dignified grace, commanding respect from all those around him. So if you are a dignified gentleman, kind of like Mr. Bloomberg in the story we're about to read is described as being, someone that is dignified, holds himself with honor and respect. I'm sure you've seen people that you think are very dignified. Maybe you are dignified. Number 9, gleaned. This means to gather or collect information, ideas or insights, slowly or gradually. So for example, the detective gleaned valuable clues from the witness's statement, helping them in solving the mystery. So maybe we can glean something from the story to help us with the mystery. But yes, so glean just means to gather clues, kind of, or gather information. All right, number 10, suspect. There's 2 ways to use this word suspect. So suspect could be the person who is believed or considered to be involved in a crime based on evidence or suspicion. Suspect can also refer to the way that someone feels about something. So you could say he is a suspect in the case, or the example here is the police arrested the main suspect in connection with the robbery. So he is the suspect. And you could also say, I suspect that he committed the crime, right? You can use it either way. It's a slightly different pronunciation. If we say, I suspect the suspect, a little faster, committed the crime. Number 11, pseudonym. Pseudonym signifies a fictitious name or alias. You know, earlier when I said the alias or pseudonym, this is what I was talking about. So if you have a pseudonym or an alias, it's just another name for someone or something, usually used by an author or someone that wants to conceal their identity. So for example, the famous author published their controversial novel under a pseudonym to maintain anonymity. All right, number 12, discreet. Discreet means to be careful and cautious in order to avoid attention or to maintain confidentiality. So, for example, the detective conducted discreet inquiries to gather information without alerting the suspects. Discreet is just like trying to keep it on the down low or keeping it quiet. You're not shouting it from the rooftops. You're trying to keep it quiet. We've made it to the part where we are going to read our story, our mystery story. So grab your notebooks and pens and get ready to take some notes, or of course, it's 2023. Take some notes on the computer if you like. You can follow along with your lesson guide that I've provided for you. Remember, that's down below if you haven't downloaded it yet. So check that out so you can follow along with me, or just look at the screen and follow along. Okay? All right. I'll go ahead and read it, and then we'll talk about it a little, and then I'll give you a chance to guess who did it. Let's get started. All right. The office embezzler. More irritated than usual, Inspector Martinez picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. Jinx, he said, I need your expertise on this one. We met at the Arabica coffee shop that had recently taken over the vacant spot that was once occupied by Hunans. Like the mall opening, which it bordered, there wasn't a lot of foot traffic. It seemed to suit Inspector Martinez just fine. He preferred to keep our consultation on the case discreet. Plus, of course, here, he could use the discount coupons that had rained into most of the mailboxes in town, while an indulgent postman looked the other way. Or maybe the postman had moonlighted and distributed the coupons illegally along with the mail. There are all manner of benign, everyday mysteries which go unsolved. He sipped his coffee to cool it while I ordered an iced latte. When the hovering waiter left, Inspector Martinez leaned over and said in a hushed tone, "This is a tough one, Jenks, and it won't be kept quiet much longer, not with a payroll coming up next week." Payroll? Inspector, you're throwing me right into the thick of it. You've got to give me some context here, or I'll be stumbling around like a clown in a dark circus. Ugh. Sorry, it's the Bloomberg Furniture Company. They're missing a cool $2,000. Donner Bloomberg, the president of the company, called me yesterday afternoon. I went down and interviewed him and talked with some employees this morning. Matter of fact, I'm just coming from there. So, what did you learn at Bloomberg Furniture Company? Well, the money went missing from the office safe. Anya Petrova, Bloomberg's secretary, had cashed a company check at the First National Bank the previous day and placed the money in Bloomberg's safe, as was the usual procedure. Only 4 people had access to that safe, by the way. Besides Donner Bloomberg and Anya Petrova, there were 2 other company employees. Victor Lucas, the showroom manager, Eli Nguyen, company administrator. Lucas spends most of her time showing potential customers around the showroom. Nguyen manages the furniture wholesale purchasing in the fleet of trucks. Some fleet. 2 trucks. That pick up the company's wholesale orders from North Carolina manufacturers and then take furniture that has been purchased from the showroom to customers' homes. He also makes an occasional showroom sale on a commission basis. Well, Inspector. We're talking about a company that basically runs the whole town. There's no way those are the only employees that work there. Oh, of course not. We got a whole crew of hard-working folks, including drivers, furniture haulers, and truckers. Some of them are full-time, while others work part-time. In total, there are around a dozen individuals, alongside Bloomberg, Petrova, Lucas, and Nguyen, who eagerly await their paychecks from the company. But the others are not regularly inside the company office and showroom like those 4 are. You mentioned payday was approaching, Inspector. That only intensifies the urgency surrounding the missing cash, doesn't it? Sorry about that. What I meant to say is that every employee receives their paycheck at the end of the month, rather than opting for direct deposit. They prefer to personally collect their hard-earned wages. Bloomberg said Nguyen had set up a plan for direct deposit, but people preferred to pick up their checks. Along with their paychecks, employees also receive reimbursements for their expenses incurred during business trips, such as meals and motel stays when picking up furniture from the manufacturer, given the usual reimbursement expenses. So as part of the routine, employees pick up their paychecks and sign voucher receipts for their expense money, receiving that sum in cash. Only now they won't because of the theft. Exactly. Tell me your impressions of the 4 people you've interviewed. Well, Bloomberg is dignified, expensively dressed, the type born into money. His grandfather started the company and still has enough for his lifestyle, according to his banker and investment broker. He's the last one to have seen the money in the safe when he arrived yesterday morning at 9. He is also the one who discovered the theft when he came back from a long luncheon with his 2 sons at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Petrova, his secretary, is a new employee, joining the company as a replacement for a long-standing employee. Bloomberg has praised her for being efficient, which is fortunate considering she carries a substantial burden of college loans to repay. During her lunch break, Petrova briefly stepped out of the building to grab some takeout. To save time, she had placed an order over the phone. She stated she was gone no longer than 25 minutes. Did anyone witness this? Yeah. Eli Nguyen said he saw her coming back to the office about a half hour after she left. Nguyen? Ha! Nguyen is a trip. He's in his mid-30s, snazzy dresser, and a real natural-born salesman. He's a loudmouth, but he's charming. He almost sold me a sofa during the interview, and he isn't even the showroom sales manager. And Victoria Lucas? Woo! Impressive. Very impressive. Tall and striking, with a mane of red hair. Not the auburn or taffy shade so many women achieve, but real fire red. She is in her early 30s, slender and statuesque. She is all business when she's at work, but she has a good sense of humor and is very popular with the sales staff and customers. People warm to her, no matter the guise she might be wearing. You know what I mean? Sure, but what was she doing during the lunch hour? She was sharing sandwiches with Nguyen. There's an employee break room off the showroom floor. The break room has a good view of the showroom in case a customer was to come in while the staff were eating. They would be able to see anyone leaving or coming in the building. The company doesn't close for lunch. It's always open. 9 to 5 and 7 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays. Not that much furniture is being bought during this recession, though. I thought about this for a moment, and Inspector Martinez spoke again. And before you ask, Lucas said that Nguyen left the break room only once, for about 5 minutes, to answer the phone. That means she was also alone for 5 minutes. Yeah. And Nguyen said that he remembers Lucas went to the ladies' room, which is on the other side of the showroom, after they finished their sandwiches and Petrova was returning. Any personal details? Well, everyone except the boss is single. But from what I've heard, Petrova has a real thing for the boss. Not sure he knows she's alive, romantically speaking. I guess this is where our friend Annie must take over. I've got a pretty good idea of who's embezzling from Bloomberg's furniture company at this point. Based on what you've told me, you've got a keen eye for detail. But Annie understands the personal side of things a bit more. Those observations are just as crucial, if not more so. You got that right. He drifted off and turned bright red and quickly tried to correct himself. I mean, you can sort these things out. I mean, you always have been able to, especially when your loyal readers are writing in. Here's your chance to make a difference in person. He was referring to the fact that I write half of my articles under my own name and the other half under a pseudonym, Annie. A lot could be gleaned from the letters Annie receives, and that gives me an upper hand in situations like these. Inspector Martinez found out my little secret, but agreed to keep it under wraps as long as I help him with investigations when he needs it. It's nice to have that little secret. Everyone sees me as this big football legend, Jinx Jennings. And I like having that little secret that I am also wise Mama Annie to my readers. It's kind of like my superpower. Mama Annie can sneak in on my shoulders and get the dirt and solve the case, while my large stature walks in and takes the attention. I'll give it a try. In my business editor guise, it was easy to arrange an appointment at the Bloomberg Furniture Company. Donner Bloomberg particularly appreciated the publicity that I brought, given the recent economic downturn. I didn't bring up the theft in our conversation, and the staff photographer captured several pictures of the weekend edition. How do you rate your staff, Mr. Bloomberg? I wondered if you had asked me that. Word does get around in a small town like this one. They are good at what they do. My secretary is ambitious and does her work, but I don't think she's very interested in this job. Veronica Lucas is amazing. If I weren't happily married, I would definitely go for her. She's a very smooth saleswoman, too. Just has the knack for it. Eli Nguyen is productive and well organized, and I think he has a thing for Veronica. Not that you asked. Veronica Lucas was all business when I talked with her. She confirmed what Inspector Samuels had already told me, but she added the detail that during their lunches, Nguyen had a tendency to make unwarranted passes at her. Unwarranted is like unwanted, just so you know. Eli Nguyen was the sort of guy I wouldn't want at the other end of the counter. He was so persuasive that I'd end up buying something that I didn't really want or need. That Anya Petrova's quite a looker, huh? I said. If you like that type. clearly, he didn't. Next, I was pleased to hear Anya Petrova say, "You're from Chronicle? It must be fun working with Annie." She told me she was a regular reader of the column. "Sure, and Annie always says that personal business on the job becomes company business at some point." Anya Petrova giggled. "Annie is right about that. Not that Veronica ever gave the boss any encouragement." I raised my eyebrows with interest. "He used to buy her little presents, you know," Anya whispered. "That doesn't make for a happy workplace in my experience." "It sure doesn't. Poor Eli was furious. Not only about Mr. Bloomberg giving Veronica presents, but that she kept them. Eli has had a crush on her for months. Maybe he wanted to up the ante, get her something extra nice," Anya speculated. I had welcome news for Inspector Samuels. Ask Annie had solved another case. So that was interesting, right? So what do you think about this? Okay, so let's look back at our suspect list. Now, again, we have Donner Bloomberg, the president of Bloomberg Furniture. He was the last person to see the money in the safe, and he discovered the theft. He also appears to have a very comfortable life, and he might have a motive to protect the company assets. And let's look at Victoria. She exhibits professionalism. She's very beautiful, knowledgeable of furniture styles and placements. She could have her own motive to use Bloomberg's interest in her to get away with a little extra cash. Then we have Eli Nguyen. Eli is always very enthusiastic, and he's a great salesman. He could make you believe anything. He's very charming. So maybe he uses his charm to try to trick you into thinking that he could never steal this money, and he would use the extra money to impress Victoria, who he has a crush on or has romantic interest in. And then we have Anya Petrova, the new secretary. She seems efficient, and she has a little crush on the boss. But she also has all of those college loans. So she also could potentially have a motive to steal the money to help her pay off some of those loans. Alright, so after looking into this, it sounds like all 4 of the suspects have a motive for wanting to take the money, right? They all have a reasonable motive. So what do you think? Who's guilty? Alright, so this is the time. Before I announce the verdict, take a minute or two, pause the video, and come back to hear the verdict. Okay? See you in a few. So, that was a tough one, right? With all 4 suspects being in question, who did it? Okay, here goes. So, the guilty verdict is in. Drum roll. The conclusion is that Anya Petrova, the new secretary, committed the theft to repay her college loans and attempted to frame Eli Nguyen. There at the end where she mentions that, that maybe he needed that money to impress Veronica, she puts that out there into Jinx's mind, right? Or into all of our minds. Well, maybe he did, it makes you think that. It makes you think maybe he did use that money to impress Veronica. He has a crush on her and he wants to do something nice for her. So it's not Donner Bloomberg, the owner, because he still has enough money to sustain his lifestyle and lacks a motive for the crime. Eli Nguyen and Victoria Lucas were together most of the time during the incident, with only a few minutes apart. Eli left the snack area for just a few minutes to take a phone call, but that time frame wasn't really enough for him to do anything, for him to get away with stealing money. If Victoria had left the break room to go to the front office at that time, Eli would have seen her go to the front office because he was in the showroom on the telephone call. Anya Petrova arrived while Victoria Lucas was in the bathroom, the only time when Victoria and Eli were not together. Annie noticed that Anya was attempting to implicate Eli in the embezzlement without being asked. That was the giveaway. Furthermore, Jinx, or Annie, noticed that Anya Petrova was attempting to implicate Eli Nguyen in the embezzlement without even being asked about it, and no one really saying anything to her about it. That was the giveaway. Anya was also the only person who had the opportunity to steal money from the safe. She could have done so any time between returning with her takeout at 1:30 and Donna's return to the office at 3, because no one was really with her during those times. If you want to know how else later on, kind of a continuance of the story, we searched Anya's purse and we found some new bills, which the serial numbers were the same. They were a match to the ones from the day before. So we did it. Anya Petrova was the guilty party. Did you get it right? If you did, please tell me about it. Leave a comment down below. I want to hear all about it. Tell me what you think of this lesson as well. I thought this was something fun and different. I put this all together for you guys, so I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know, or even if not. I love to hear from you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.